I was telling my wife after the third Sabbath last month, I said, my sermons must be getting, somewhat better because more people are showing up. She said, Solly, they're coming for the lunch. And speaking about your sermon, make it shorter. I want to thank you all for coming. We're really glad to have you all here today. I want to thank Carl for his sermon that he preached last week. If you did not hear it, please go watch it online. Did any of you, in a moment of difficulty, go to the Psalms and read one of the Psalms like he suggested you do? Oh, wow. A church that listens. It's amazing. He cannot see the room, but he can hear what is happening in the room. There are thousands of people who are packed onto the temple roof. They pressed up along the walls. They are laughing. They're not laughing with him. They are laughing at him. Worse, they are laughing at his God. He is the strongest man who ever lived. But tonight, he is the entertainment, dragged out blind, the sockets of his eyes emptied by the Philistines when they gouged out his eyes. He's made to stumble and grope his way to the center of the room. And then he's taken and tied like an animal to these two great pillars at the center of the hall. And this man who broke every vow that he had ever made to God, who wanted the wrong things, who chased after the wrong life, who handed his secret to a woman who had sold him out for silver. He woke up one morning to find that his strength was gone, but he did not even know that the Lord had left him. Now he's blind, humiliated, standing in the wreckage of a life that he has thrown away, and he does the only thing that he has left. He prays. He prays 5 words. It's almost nothing. Lord, remember me. Strengthen me. And then he leans in on the pillars. I want you to hold this image of him, because I'm about to tell you something that should not be possible. Of course, you know who this is. This is Samson. Centuries later, one of the New Testament writers, most people think it's Paul, writes this great honor roll of the great heroes of faith. The chapter, Hebrews 11, that we call the Hall of Faith. And Samson's name is written on this wall. Let me repeat that for you, because you've probably read that list so many times, it doesn't even register in your mind anymore. Samson, the vow breaker, the man who has wasted everything, the man who has made his God a mockery, is on the great wall, the great hall of faith. Have you ever wondered what he's doing there? And it's not only Samson. You walk down this wall and you start reading the names on it, and the longer you look at it, the stranger it seems to get. On the wall is Abraham. You might think, well, Abraham is a father of faith. Twice he was so afraid for his life that he handed his wife over to a foreign king and called her his sister. Great faith for you, right? Sarah, she's on that wall too. She laughed derisively in God's face. Jacob, whose name means deceiver, he conned his brother out of his inheritance. He lied to his dying blind father. Moses, we've spoken about him a lot here. He killed a man, buried his body in the sand in the desert. He's on that list. Rahab, Well, you read Rahab, the text doesn't even try and soften it. It just says the quiet part out loud. Rahab, the prostitute. These are the people who make it onto the hall of faith. A coward, a cheat, a murderer, an adulterer, a prostitute, a man who has been enslaved by his own appetites. This is about as ridiculous as if you went to the Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and you walked through the Hall of Fame and you looked at the wall and you saw a picture and it said, Solly Swan, greatest quarterback ever. That's the scale of this kind of ridiculousness when you go and read this list, this Hall of Fame. And the writer of Hebrews, he knows it. Paul knows that every one of these stories, the lie, the laugh, the body in the sand, all of it, he knows everything about these stories. But he's not going to hand us a cleaned up, a sanitized, a stained glass version of these people. He knows exactly who they were. And despite of it, he hangs up their name on the hallway anyway. So this can only mean one of two things. Either the writer of Hebrews has made a catastrophic error about who belongs in this hall of heroes, or you and I, maybe, have completely misunderstood what faith really is. So let's take a look at how Paul defines it right at the top of the chapter. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Read that again and notice what is not there. Not strength, not a clean record, not having a certainty that never wavers. Faith, he says, is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Which is to say, faith is not a muscle that you flex. Like we looked at last night, faith is a direction that you turn and face. It is turning towards something you cannot see and trusting that it is there. And the moment that you see it, suddenly this whole strange list on this hall of faith snaps into focus. Because I want you to notice what it is that God does with all of these people. It's not their track record that God is interested in. But by faith, Abraham went, even though he had no idea where he was going. By faith, Sarah was given a son. By faith, Rahab was spared because she threw her lot in with the God of Israel instead of with the people of her city. Each one of these people, all they did was something very small. One trembling turn towards God in the middle of a life that was mostly pointed in the opposite direction. Abraham's faith was not that he never lied. It was that, liar and all, when God said go, he went. Rahab's faith was not that she cleaned up her life first. It was that when the spies came, she bet everything on the God of Israel, who was not even her God at that time. She was met exactly where she was, at the very bottom, with nothing to her name. But she was not left there. Their faith was never the hero. The people were never the point. When we read Hebrews chapter 11, we read it like it's a self-contained chapter. You know, we start at the top, verse 1, and we go through the opening, we go through the list, and we get to the end, and we think Hebrews 11 is done. But the chapters in your Bible were added more than 1,000 years later after these words were written. There's some scholars who think that somebody was writing in a carriage and he was writing in the chapter numbers on these, in the Bible. Every now and then maybe the horse stumbled and hit a bump in the road, and instead of putting the chapter marker where he meant to, he puts it in the wrong space. Paul did not write chapter 11 and stop and then write chapter 12. He writes just one long letter, one sort of breathless sentence. And that's how chapter 11 ends. It ends with these words in verse 39. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. Get that? Not one of them received what had been promised. Every name on that wall died still waiting, still reaching for an horizon that they never got to walk into. The whole gallery of heroes, all of them, when you look at it closely, is a gallery of people who never arrive. But then we stop because we think the chapter is over. But the story doesn't stop in verse 39. You have to go over into chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witness, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Now we finally get to what's important in chapter 11. There is this whole list straining towards this final summary in chapter 12. All of them, Abraham, Sarah, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, Samson. The writer sweeps them all together up into one motion, and he does not say, now go and be like these heroes of faith. Instead, he tells us that they are like a crowd that are in the stands. They are witnesses sitting in the seats. And there is exactly one runner on the track. And he says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Not on Abraham, not on David, not on Rahab. Now, when we hear this phrase, pioneer and perfecter, we often think that means Jesus is our example. He's the best one who ever did this. He's the standard that we are meant to match. If you think that, you got it wrong, because that's not what those words actually mean. It means the one who begins the thing and the one who completes it. He is the pioneer and the perfecter. He is the author who writes the first word and the author who will write the last word for you. He is not the example of your faith. Jesus is the source of your faith, and he is the finisher of your faith. And this is the secret that the whole of chapter 11 has been building up to this whole time. In all of human history, there has been exactly one faithful person. It's not anyone who was up on the wall. Not Abraham when he was scared. Not Moses when his temper locked him out of the promised land. Not David, whose name is written right there on the list, but took another man's wife and then arranged to have her husband killed. Every hero on that wall has a crack running straight through them. Every one of them fell. They all failed, except one, Jesus. Where Abraham gasped, Jesus trusted. When Moses raged, Jesus surrendered. When Samson broke every vow he made, Jesus kept every one. Where every name on that wall died waiting for the promise, Jesus is the promise. He is here. He is in the flesh. He has arrived. And he is the perfecter of our faith, because he does not just show us how it is done and then leave us to manage it on our own. No, he does it for us. He runs the stretch where we keep collapsing. He finishes what we cannot finish. Now, I know that some of you're probably like terrified about this. In the book of Revelation, you read about the book of life. Or in 2 Corinthians 5, Paul talks about the fact that there is a judgment coming one day where everyone is going to have to give an account of what they have done during their lives. Honestly, if you think about it, you should be filled with shame. because you fear that you're going to be exposed in front of the whole universe. I want to tell you this morning. One day when you get to heaven and you decide, I wonder what Solly's life was like on earth. Let me check out the pastor guy, see what he got up to. I'm sure that I could never have been as bad as him. Firstly, when you do, I hate to disappoint you, but my life is incredibly boring. You're going to like, is this it? But then when you actually pull it up and watch my life, this is what you're going to see. You are going to see Jesus living the life I would have lived if sin had never happened on this planet. I think of the words in John 8. Jesus says to a woman that they're trying to stone, he says, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you." That's the God we will stand before one day, and he will speak those words to you, and he will welcome you into his kingdom if you'll let him. 500 years ago, there was a monk named Martin Luther, not to be confused with Martin Luther King Jr. He nearly destroyed himself trying to be like these heroes of faith. He fasted until he became so sick he had to eat. He would go into the confessional, or as Roberta calls it, the box, and he would confess for hours and hours. He did this so often that his priest would finally kick him out of the confessional and tell him to go home. He climbed up the stone stairs in the Church of Rome on his knees at one time, sick with fear that his faith would never be pure enough, never be enough for God. And then one day he read what Paul wrote, and suddenly the whole structure that he had been killing himself with just collapsed beneath him. He came up with these words in Latin that cost him so much of his peace of mind. I'm going to try and say it. It says, "Simul justus et tu peccator," which means at the very same time, you can be righteous and a sinner. That you can, on any given day, in your same failing, falling body, genuinely be a sinner, and yet genuinely, completely righteous in the eyes of God. You've all experienced this. You're like, how can I be righteous when I'm doing all of these sins? This is why. Not because you finally produced enough faith, but because the righteousness was never something that you produced by yourself. It is the righteousness of Christ, his perfect record, signed over into your Netflix account, so that when you get to heaven and I look you up, all I'll see is the life that Jesus lived for you if sin had never happened. This is how the people on the wall can be both at once. They can be failures and they can be heroes. They're sinners and saints. They're liars and they're giants. Not because their faith was secretly strong, but because the one they turned towards was. So I just want to talk honestly to some of you here this morning who have come to church tired. You've been coming to church for a long time. You've heard a lot of sermons that seem to end the same way. You've got to try harder. You've got to believe more. You've got to be more like the giants on the wall of faith. And every one of those sermons is like having a backpack where another stone gets added into it, into a life that is already bending and close to breaking. And here's the thing that you may have never even said out loud, but you've been quietly measuring your faith and you realize that your faith has kept on coming up short. And then you look at other people, they seem so certain, they seem so steady, so confident in their faith, in their relationship, and you're like, oh, this is what my faith is supposed to be like, and I can't do it. And some mornings you might even wake up and you're not sure that you have any faith at all. And somewhere along the line, you just decide, you know what? I'm never going to be in that hall of faith. Just like Solly will never be the greatest quarterback ever. So what I want you to hear really, really clearly today is what this chapter is actually trying to tell us. There is no one on that wall whose life burned with a steady flame of their own. Not one of the people on that wall. The whole hall is filled with people exactly like you, like me, people with small faith, falling faith, a single shaky turn towards God on their worst moment in their life. You were never asked to manufacture faith on your own. You were never the one asked to finish the race. That is Jesus. The only question that was ever on the table is, what direction are you turning and facing? Because if you are turning and facing Jesus, even now, even if you're tired, even if you're ashamed, even if you're unsure, but if you turn towards Jesus, I will tell you, just watch what happens to your life. Because you cannot behold and not be changed by Jesus. It might take time, but Jesus will move you. Quietly, over the years, He will perfect the faith in you. He did that to every one of the people on that wall. And He will move you too, not because you're strong, but because He is worth looking at. Leaning blind on those pillars with everything gone, Samson does not summon some sort of great heroic faith in that last final moment. He has nothing left. He prays out into the dark, Lord, remember me. It is the prayer of a man who has finally run out of everything except God. One last turn that he makes in the right direction. It's the very end of a wasted life. But in that small, broken, final turn that he makes to Jesus, that's the thing that puts his name in the Hall of Fame. That's what's hanging in this great Hall of Fame in the book of Hebrews. Not the strong, but the shattered. Abraham and his lie, Sarah and her disbelief, Rahab and her past, Moses and a body in the sand, David and his guilt, Samson and his ruined, blind, last moment prayer that he utters. Every one of them is met by Jesus at the bottom, but none of them were left there. And not one of them is hanging on the wall telling you that you should be like them. None of them are judging you this morning. In fact, if they were to come alive, they would be leaning out of their frames. Every face on that wall would be leaning out, and they would be pointing past themselves, and they would be telling you, look, turn to the one that really matters. Stop looking at us, they would say. Turn your eyes towards Jesus. Look at Him so that you will not grow weary and not give up.
Here I am, Lord. I worship you and you alone, because of the love you have shown. Here I am, Lord. I offer you control. I submit my life to you, to you.
I'm searching for truth. So many lies and deception at hand. War and strife in every land. I'll not be troubled, though afflicted, killed, and hated by men. Help me endure to the end, to the end.
My faith will rise higher than the mountains. Open my eyes, have mercy on me. You are the one who heals me when I'm broken. I praise your Son who set me free. Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come. Worship Him that made heaven and earth and the sea, and the fountains of waters. Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come. Worship Him that made heaven and earth and the sea, and the fountains of water. My faith will rise higher than the mountains. Open my eyes, have mercy on me, me, me. My faith will rise